You guys, we are back with another 15 minute interview. Alexia is here with us today, and what I want to do is allow her to introduce herself here in a second. But first, I just want to kind of recap a little bit about what 15-minute interviews is about. So 15-minute interviews came about because I thought, man, there's a lot of people out there that don't know what it is that we exactly do. And there's not a better way to do that than for us to be able to go online and start just sharing, you know? And so what if we interview each other? That was my thought. And so in a group that I'm in an online therapy group that I'm in, I put it out there, and a lot of people were willing to volunteer their time to participate and to help out, to just display what it is that we do. So anyways, that's how we got to 15-minute interviews. I hope that it's serving everybody and that people are getting a lot out of it. Okay, so if you can introduce yourself to us and let us know about you and where you're at.
Absolutely. Thank you, Thomas. This is absolutely, like to reiterate what you said, one of the wonderful reasons why I love counseling, because it does put us into connection with so many people that maybe otherwise we would have not had that opportunity to do so. So hopefully our viewers will have a little bit more information today, what online counseling is like, maybe a little bit about anxiety, and hopefully some useful resources. So to explain a little bit about who I am and what it is I do, I feel that it helps for me to explain a little bit about my background. So as you said, my name is Alexia Muniz, and I am a licensed clinical professional counselor here in Chicago, Illinois. And before I got into the private practice field, several years ago, I used to work in the non-for-profit, where I actually would travel to families' homes, about 10 to 12 counties in the surrounding area, and we would travel and actually provide in-home family therapy to individuals or family members that had a family member with autism or another form of intellectual disability. And this was really my first exposure that showed me all the many challenges that people face in getting to therapy. We know that there's the stigma, of course, and once people are able to get over the stigma, there was maybe medical or health challenges, there were transportation challenges, and childcare. We know that childcare itself is hard to find, and especially with somebody that had a family member with autism or another form of intellectual disability, it was very hard for them to find childcare during these appointments. So it was really this desire to merge this accessibility as well as not lose the great quality care of therapy. And so that's really when online therapy just made the most sense to me, as well as I do have a face-to-face location in 155 North Michigan Avenue, Suite 608 here in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, cool deal. So what is it that you would say is your, and I think I heard you mention it a little bit earlier, but what is it, your niche, or what's something that you really focus on?
Well, of course, I have a huge background in providing support to families of autism and other form of intellectual disability, but a really core piece is just working with children, teens, young adolescents, and managing anxiety, ADHD, depression, how to better foster coping skills, how to even understand and process what's going on, as well as that other huge piece of it, then I would be working with their parents. Maybe I was working on the aspect of trying to have more of a united front with the parents, maybe help to foster and facilitate a stronger communication with their young child or teen.
Okay. So is there something that you recognize as like a theme or a point that you're constantly making in your therapy practice?
Well, there are definitely a lot of themes, because I like to work off of themes as well. They seem to connect very well with people. But two things that I like to make sure, and this is something that I try and do so more in my introductory piece to therapy. Now, this will be with someone who maybe is a seasoned veteran at therapy, or maybe they're also one of my personal favorites, newbies, people who might be new to the therapy experience. And two things that I like to make clear is that it really needs to be considered a part of the mental health aspect needs to be considered part of our personal health maintenance. Mm-hmm. And the second part is that this is a judgment-free zone. Mm-hmm. So the first piece about being part of our health, wellness and routine is we will have, general medical physician appointments. We will have eye doctor appointments. We will have dental appointments. I just had one yesterday. And we do these because we see there's such a positive benefit from them. And we do this on a regular basis. And if somebody were to be leaving work early, we wouldn't really think twice if somebody said, hey, I got to go to the dentist appointment. So I really want people to try and consider, as much as they think caring about our body, to make sure that that's moving and going smoothly, that it's so important. Our mind is part of our body, and we need to make sure that that is working as well.
Gotcha.
And the second piece about it being a judgment-free zone is that, this is a very vulnerable process. And I think that so many times people feel that they're going to be judged telling their story. And, judgment is unavoidable. It really is. I'm sure right now people, who are going to be viewing this might be judging this in some way. And, judgment only really serves a purpose to provide guilt, to hold us back. It doesn't really give us, a path undo the basis of judgment. It doesn't really tell us how to reflect, instead of ruminate, how to thought stop, how to slow down those negative thoughts. And these are all the things that I really like to make sure that the client understands in treatment.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. The judgment, the difficulties that judgment brings for us as we kind of make it.
Absolutely.
Whenever we're able to drop judgments, the things that we can do, like pretty amazing stuff.
It is, judgment, sometimes it's also opportunity, just allowing yourself the opportunity of no judgment, what you can be doing with that.
Okay. All right. So somewhere you get knowledge, and we want that. So, I'm basically building a knowledge tree from everybody that I'm interviewing. So if you can give me a book or someone you follow or some kind of podcast, a movie, some kind of resource that you can give us to add on to our tree of knowledge.
Absolutely, Thomas. So definitely, of course, we're always sort of seeking that knowledge, always seeking that growth. So I do work with books, workbooks, podcasts, even with apps. And one of the great books that I like to work with is Don't Let Your Emotions Run Your Life for Teens. This is something that I use with children, teens, and even obviously with my young adults and adults in parenting. And one of the topics that I really like to cover in here is on prevention and intervention. And actually, I also know that when we talk about books, sometimes people will roll their eyes at the thought of having to maybe read a book or do a worksheet, despite the fact that maybe we're working, with college students, young professionals. So I'm also very flexible with doing more of an informal process. So Thomas, if actually you wouldn't mind doing a little bit of a role play exercise with me.
Sure.
So as I said, this is going to be about prevention and intervention. And for this context, intervention is going to be an act that we are applying at the time of a crisis. So something's happening and now we're applying something. And prevention is going to be something that, of course, that we are applying in a timely manner to avoid a situation. Okay. That makes sense? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to, of course, in a session, this would be much longer, but for this purpose, it's only going to be 4 questions. Okay. So if I were to ask you, driving cautiously at the speed limit, is that prevention or intervention?
That's
driving
prevention.
Cautiously at the speed limit.
That's prevention.
Perfect. Okay. So if I were to ask you if you were to slam on your brakes to avoid an accident, would that be prevention or intervention?
That's intervention.
Correct. So if I were to ask you if you were to pay your cell phone bill after they cut off your cell phone, prevention or intervention?
Intervention.
Correct. And if I were to ask you if you paid your cell phone bill on time, prevention or intervention?
Prevention.
Okay, correct. Now, a lot of times when doing this exercise, I do find with people that when I ask them to give me then themselves maybe 3 things that they do for prevention on stress or prevention on anxiety, a lot of times they're giving me things that are related maybe more so to intervention. So I do find trying to kind of role play through that with them a little bit helps them to have a little bit of a better connection. And then, as I said, one of the apps that I do love to work with, because again, people have access to apps, we're online. We do know that sometimes having things at their access is a little bit easier for them. So there's an app called Mindshift. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Okay. Wonderful app, and it should be free because I love to work with things that are for free.
Yeah,
And so it has a lot of great tools in there. You can track, the client can track their symptoms in there. There's also a chart in there for motivational quotes, as well as there's a feature in there that they can have a guided meditation where they can choose a male or female voice to guide them through that meditation.
Okay. All right. Cool deal. Yeah, tons of resources, right? And thoughts to go with it. All right. So if you can kind of lead us out a little bit by giving us either a story, a challenge, or some kind of homework that our audience can take home. And to be honest, I take it home too. Like I definitely, I like all that we're getting. So any story or homework challenge.
Okay, very cool, very cool. No, and I mean, again, we're all learning from one another, which is really awesome. Again, something that I like to do in sort of my introductory piece, and this might be with the client again, because I work with a lot of clients in high anxiety. And I find that a lot of my clients tend to resonate with descriptors, tend to connect a lot with that. So I try and tell them to think a lot of their anxiety much like a carpet of a high traffic area in an old office building. Okay, and we know that carpet in a high traffic area, it's going to have wear on it over time. The threads are going to come loose, and really our anxiety is much like that carpet. And despite all of this, it still is a high major route, and it's going to be the first line of defense that the person is going to utilize, and it's going to be easily retrieved by them, despite the lack of the effectiveness in knowing that this is really not going to be the most effective route for them. They still utilize that as a strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so now that, you know, I kind of have them have a little bit better of an understanding as to how that might impact them, some of the things that I might assign as sort of the first assignment is I would maybe have them tracking when are they holding their breath? What is there certain times of the day that they're doing it more often than others? And then not to judge it. Again, judgment free zone, that, you know, this isn't good or bad, but it's just for them to be aware of what's going on. And then the second task that I would have them do is to be tracking their automatic thoughts. You know, the automatic thoughts that are negative, popping up saying, oh, why did I say that? That was so stupid. What did I do? And again, not to be judging if they're doing it or how often they're doing it, but just to be more aware of that it's going on. And then the third piece, which we will be spending most of our therapy process, is really the mental adjustments and the mental maintenance that we're going to be doing, working with, you know, the cognitive behavioral therapy, solution focused, you know, through the use of workbooks and everything like that. And so I would recommend that to our viewers, you know, today to be aware themselves. You know, when is it that they're holding their breaths? Is it when they're opening their emails or they're about to open their emails for the day? Is it when maybe they get a yelling complaint from a customer? Not to judge it, good or bad, to try and have the inhales match the exhales, the calm body match the calm mind as much as possible, even if it's for 30 seconds.
Right. Okay. Cool deal. Nice challenges. And that's something totally for everybody to take with them. I think the more we do pay attention to ourselves, we move in a way that we really intended to, right? The less we pay attention to ourselves, the less likely we end up somewhere where we're like, how did I get here? Right?
Absolutely. I mean, because it is. And then a lot of times it does feel like it happened so quickly, but it happens over time, you know, and so as much as we can be aware of.
Okay. Cool deal. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend 15 minutes with us and get our interview in.
No, thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, you guys. So this has been 15-minute interviews. I'm Thomas Isaac Castro, licensed marriage and family therapist in California. We will be doing this every Wednesday and Friday until we run out. I just had a couple more people add, so I'm not really sure when we're going to run out. I think I put a cap on 30, which means, man, that's a lot of weeks we're going to spend together. But I'm excited. Take care, everyone.